What is up guys, Stark here. In today's video I am taking a look at the event servant for the second Halloween event, and that is going to be Elizabeth Bathory. Now she is also the event character for the first Halloween event, but this time they just changed her class from a caster to a saber. So now she has 3 different copies of herself in the game, and spoilers, this will not be the last one we will be getting. There are quite a few of them in the game, and we still have a few more to get. But for now, we're going to be talking about the saber version of her, and as I said, she is the event servant for the event currently going on as of recording this video. And she's a pretty good servant. She's nothing special, but she does have a few good uses, and we'll go ahead and talk about those in just a little bit. But as I said before, she is a saber and a 4-star servant, as all the event servants are, and she will go up to level 80, and at level 80 she will have 11,248 HP, and she will also have 9,899 attack. This will rank her 73rd overall in HP and 45th overall in attack. If you do decide you want to grail her and max her out, she will end up with 13,638 HP and 11,986 attack. As for some of her additional stats, for her star weight, she's going to have 100, and then for her star gain, she will have 9.9%. And then for her Noble Phantasm generation, on her attack she will have 0.55%, and on defense she will have 3%. So she does have some pretty good Noble Phantasm generation, which is very important for her character, as we will discuss with her skills, specifically her 3rd skill. So moving on to her skills, her first skill is going to be the Hero's Principles EX. This will grant herself invincibility for 1 turn. This will also increase her own Noble Phantasm generation for 1 turn. So this is a really good skill. Anytime you can give yourself invincibility is going to be very useful, because you could just use that to survive against a Noble Phantasm turn, and those are always really good turns to survive on. Noble Phantasms are the strongest things you can get hit with, and being able to just completely ignore those is going to help this character survive a lot longer than they normally would. The Noble Phantasm generation increase is also really nice. It's going to be a 30% increase at level 1 and goes up to 50% at level 10. And this will be on a 6-turn charge time at max level. The only problem with this is that it has 2 effects, which is nice, but the effects don't really complement each other. The first one is like a defensive skill, and the other one's an offensive skill, and you really can't take use of both of them at the same time. So if you want to use her skill for the defense, then you're really not going to be making too much use of her generation. Now this one's not really that bad, but there's another skill that she has that really has a couple flaws, and that one is going to be her 2nd skill, which is going to be the Mana Burst Courage D. So again, this one has 2 skills, and this will increase her own Buster card effectiveness for 1 turn, and this will also increase her own defense by 20% for 1 turn. So again, we have 1 offensive and 1 defensive skill, and again, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're going to increase your own Buster card performance for 1 turn, and chances are when you do that, you're going to be using her Noble Phantasm, and you could potentially end up killing the wave, so you don't really need that defense. But in tougher fights, it's going to be useful to have that extra defense in case you don't kill the wave. But if this was, say, like, increase the own defense for 3 turns, then this would be a much better skill in my opinion. And then as for the Buster card increase, is going to be 20% at level 1 and 40% at level 10 on a 5-turn charge time at max level. So now moving on to her 3rd skill, and this is a really unique, really weird skill. So there's a lot to go through here, so I had to shrink the size just to fit it all on the screen. But let's just go ahead and talk about everything here. First up, there is a condition for this skill that has to be met in order for you to use it, and that is that you have to have your Noble Phantasm gauge at 100% or higher, because when you use this skill, you will lose 100% of your Noble Phantasm gauge. So that is a huge cost for this skill, and what it does, it will apply one of the following effects randomly. Now all these effects are really good, but it's random and the cost for it is huge. But anyway, the effects are: increase your own Buster card performance for 3 turns, grants your entire party invincibility for 1 turn, recovers your own party's HP, increases the party's attack for 1 turn, and grants critical stars. So you guys can see there are a lot of really good effects in this skill, and they're all really strong too. They're not just good effects in name, they're also really good percentages. Yeah, with the Buster Card performance for 3 turns, it'll start at 30%, goes to 50%. The attack increase is 30% to 50%, and the stars granting you 30 stars at level 1 and 50 stars at level 10 on a 6-turn charge time. So all the effects are really good. You know, that self or the team invincibility is really, really good as well. But the cost for this skill is just tremendous, and it's generally not worth it, I would have to say. You could definitely build teams around it in order to get the skill to go off, and you do have the added bonus that she is a welfare servant, so you're going to be able to get her to Noble Phantasm 5. So you're going to be able to get the, you know, the increase in Noble Phantasm gauge. So you could potentially lose the 100% and still be able to fire off her Noble Phantasm, but one of her main points is her Noble Phantasm, so I don't know if you really want to sacrifice that for her 3rd skill, especially on a random chance. But yeah, I mean, all the effects are really good. If you can get off, it's really good as well, but it's definitely not something that I would be counting on too much in the fight. As for ranking the skills, I would definitely say the priority is her 1st skill. That self-invincibility is really nice, so you want to get the cooldown for that as low as possible, as quickly as possible. And then her 2nd skill, and then finally her 3rd skill. That's just a suggestion. You can level her skills up however you want, in whatever order you want, but that's just my opinion. So moving on to her passives, she has 2. The first one is going to be the Magic Resistance A, which will increase her debuff resistance by 20%. And the second one is going to be Territory Creation C, which will increase her arts card effectiveness by 6%. So now moving on to her Ascension materials, considering she is a event servant, she is just going to need the event item in order to ascend her all the way up. So you're going to need Dragon Orbs for this character's Ascension, and you'll need them for all 4 stages. And you get those by doing the event, so if you just complete the event, get all copies of her, and you'll be able to get all of the Dragon Orbs as well. As for her skill enhancements, she's a Saber, so you're going to need Saber materials, and you're going to need 14 normal gems, magic gems, and secret gems of Sabers, 36 Proof of Heroes, 30 Dragon Fangs, 40 Great Knight Medals, 8 Dragon Reverse Scales, and 1 Crystallized Lore, as well as 27,200,000 Quantum Pieces. So now moving on to talk about her command cards and her Noble Phantasm. For her command card deck, she has 1 Quick, 2 Arts, 2 Buster, and the hit counts will be 4 on her Quick hits, 3 on her Arts hits, and then 1 hit on her Buster cards, which, you know, it really sucks. Anytime you have 1 hit is really bad, especially for this character. You know, the fact that she needs to have her Noble Phantasm so high for her 3rd skill, you really would have expected her to have a really high hit count for her deck. Now she does have good hits with Quick and Arts. I really thought her Arts cards would be a little bit higher because you're going to be trying to get your Noble Phantasm generated faster. But it is what it is. She does have 5 hits on her extra attack, which is really nice. She also has 7 hits on her Noble Phantasm. So, you know, there is something to be had there, and she does have some pretty solid Noble Phantasm generation on her attacks. So you can combo that pretty well in order to get your Noble Phantasm gauge filled up pretty quickly to use her 3rd skill or her Noble Phantasm in general. And she does have a good Noble Phantasm, and it is a Buster Noble Phantasm that will deal damage to one enemy that will ignore defense, and it will also inflict a burn on that enemy for 5 turns on the overcharge. So this is a very powerful Noble Phantasm. It is one of the strongest for SR Sabers and just Sabers in general. And this is pretty much her selling point. She is going to do a lot of damage with the Noble Phantasm, and you kind of want to just focus this character around doing damage with the Noble Phantasm. It doesn't do anything flashy, doesn't do anything special, it just does a lot of damage, and sometimes that's all you really need. So speaking of damage, she is primarily a Buster servant because of her Noble Phantasm, and there are quite a few servants you can plug in there and help her out with that. I would just pick a few, mainly the ones that came to mind to me first were William Shakespeare. He does have that AoE Buster increased skill, which combos very nicely with her Noble Phantasm. And then another one would be Nightingale. She has her own skill that will increase the Buster card effectiveness for 3 turns. So Elizabeth will definitely make, you know, excellent use of that. Another good choice. Now he doesn't really increase Buster card effectiveness, but he will help increase Noble Phantasm gauge if you do want to go ahead and go the route of using her third skill. Waver is always a really nice choice. You know, you get the attack and defense increases as well. So again, he's always a really nice choice to throw onto the team, but he can have a lot of play here with Elizabeth. So now moving on to some of the craft essences you can use on this character. First up is going to be her maximum bond craft essence, which is going to be the Invitation to Halloween. And while equipped, this will increase buster card effectiveness of all of your allies by 20%, but it will decrease the defense of all of those allies by 10%. So again, it's normal that she would have a buster card craft essence, considering that is her, you know, her main focal point. The defense decrease doesn't really matter too much. There are a lot of skills that can counteract that, and she does have her own defense increase as well. I wouldn't personally use that craft essence. There are definitely a lot of better options out there that you can use. You can go with the Black Grail, which will increase her Noble Phantasm damage by 60%, and then it will also decrease her HP by 500 every turn. You want to focus on using her Noble Phantasm, so using a craft essence that can increase the damage is definitely going to be a really good option. You could also use the Golden Sumo Boulder Tournament, which will increase her attack by 10% and will also start the battle with 30% of her gauge filled. This is a very balanced, very good craft essence to use on her. You're kind of getting both out of it with the attack increase, and you're also getting some of the Noble Phantasm gauge. I know it's not on here, but you could also go with Kaleidoscope if you do really want to use her third skill, if you have your mind set on it. Kaleidoscope is going to be a fantastic option to use, especially if it's max limit broken. You can just use it, pop her third skill immediately, or you could just save it up for later on the fight if you need to. And then you could just play your battle normally and get her gauge filled up naturally, or with skills or anything like that. So Kaleidoscope is a good option to use if you are planning on using her third skill. And then finally we have Limited Zero Over for the Buster card increase. That's a pretty good staple for any Buster character. So now moving on to her star rankings. For her stats, she's going to get a 3.9 out of 5 as a 4-star event servant. She does come pretty close to getting 4 stars, but she just falls a little bit short. For her skills, she's going to get 3.5 stars. You know, like I was saying before, she has good effects, but they don't really work well together. You know, her first and second skill have an attack and defensive skill, which you can't maximize completely. You know, if you're going to use one effect, the other effect's pretty much going to fall off and not be as useful as it could be, as opposed to a different situation. And then her third skill has that huge restriction, which makes it very difficult to use. Even though it does have a lot of really good effects, the cost just seems a little bit too high, and unless you have like 200% Noble Phantasm gauge, probably gonna not want to use it. For her Noble Phantasm, she gets 4 stars. It does a really good amount of damage, and you do have that extra damage for the burn on top of that. And there are a lot of different combos you can use to increase the amount of damage it does overall. Being able to ignore defense is really good as well, so it's just a very powerful Noble Phantasm. For her survivability, she gets 4 stars here, and then for her survivability, she gets 4 stars here. She does have the self-invincibility skill. She also does have a defense increase skill, and I know I don't really like talking about the third skill that much as far as using it, but it does have really good effects, and some of those are defensive effects as well, giving a full team invincibility and a team heal. So if you do proc one of those 2 skills, then, you know, it's definitely going to help your team survive a lot longer. So 4 stars for that. As far as versatility goes, she's going to get 3.5 stars here. She's primarily there to do damage with her Noble Phantasm, which isn't always a bad thing. Her third skill is very unreliable, like I've said many times in this video. And her first 2 skills don't really offer too much as far as support goes. So you can pluck her onto a lot of different teams, but she's not really going to be helping those teams out very much. And that will give her an overall ranking of a 3.8 out of 5. For an event servant, she's definitely a good servant to get, a must get. I mean, all these event servants are must gets in my opinion. But yeah, you know, pretty good servant, a very good 4-star saber, especially if you don't have one. So yeah, just have fun getting the event character. And that's pretty much all I have to say about this. I will leave you guys here with her Noble Phantasm, and I will see you guys next time.